know what it's meant by development? The meaning of development is a process that creates growth, progress, positive change, or the addition of physical, economic, environmental, social, and demographic components. Traditional economic measure.
A country's gross national income, or its GNI, is the sum of all goods and services it produces, plus net income received from other countries. It's closely related to gross domestic product, or GDP, which is the monetary value of all goods and services a country produces. But GNI adds the net income a country receives from overseas. That income includes the net on compensation, property income, and taxes on production and imports. GNI is the total amount a country actually gets to keep. For example, when an American-owned company operating in Canada sends its profits back to the United States, the U.S.'s GNI grows. And if a Canadian company operating within the U.S. sends its profits back to Canada, those profits will count toward Canada's GNI, but not the U.S.'s. The GNI is quite similar to a country's gross national product, GNP, which counts output from its citizens and companies regardless of where they are located. Usually, a nation's GNI and GDP are close, since the difference between what a nation receives from abroad negates most of what it pays overseas. But if the profit outflows from foreign countries located within a nation's borders far exceed the inflows of overseas income, a nation's GNI can fall far below GDP.
The gross domestic product, or GDP, of a country is calculated by adding up all of the final goods and services we buy in a quarter or in a year. Say a baker buys wheat and butter to make bread. The cost of those raw materials is included in the final price of the bread we buy. The price of that bread, along with the final price of everything we buy, such as food, clothing, or electronics, is added to what the government spends on education, the health system, and other services. This creates that big number called GDP, or nominal GDP, which includes all of a country's exports while subtracting its imports. But it's not so simple to calculate GDP growth. If prices have gone up in a year, it means inflation is included. So it will not show whether a country has actually produced more goods and services. Price fluctuations can hide the real state of the economy. So by simply subtracting inflation to get the real story of whether a country's economy is contracting or growing, that is when economists use real GDP.
Amartya Sen's capability approach. Sen argues that poverty cannot be properly measured by income or even by utility as conventionally understood. What matters fundamentally is not the thing a person has or the feeling they provide, but what a person is or can be and does or can do. Sen calls functioning, that is, what a person does or can do with the commodities of given characteristics that they come to possess or control. Sense identifies 5 sources of disparity between real income and actual advantage. The first is personal heterogeneities, the second is environmental diversities, the third is variation in social crime, the fourth is distribution within the family, and the last one is difference in rational perspective.